Good morning. I can hear you all saying good morning. I'm just that crazy. No. Good to be here. Good to be alive right now. Seems like every culture, every people across the planet, we have this mythology of the good old days. Oh, back when we first descended from the gods, when all was perfect, before Atlantis sunk, before somebody did something that messed it all up. But if only we could get back to the good old days, the abundant fish, garlic and leeks and onions and oh, how rich. The story of the Bible isn't the story of Israel, it's the story of God working with people. And you know, as unique and special as each of us are, we're so much the same. There's nothing in Egypt for me, 'cause all of my hopes lie before me in you, and there's nothing behind me I need. The land of your promise keeps calling me on. I'll walk on, I'll walk on. Where you lead me, I'll walk on. And I'll make my escape every step that I take further on. The exit ahead, the only way out lies before me. I lift up my head and see my Redeemer draws near. With every new step, obedience brings me new freedom. As I walk on, as I walk on, there's nothing in Egypt for me. All of my hope lies before me in you, and there's nothing behind me I need. The land of your promise keeps calling me on. I'll walk on, I'll walk on. Where you lead me, I'll walk on. And I'll make my escape every step that I take further on, further on. The exit ahead, the only way out lies before me. I lift up my head and I see my Redeemer draws near. With every new step, obedience brings me new freedom. And so I walk on, I walk on. Because there's nothing in Egypt for me. All of my hope lies before me in you, and there's nothing behind me I need. The land of your promise keeps calling me on. I'll walk on, I'll walk on. Where you lead me, I'll walk on, I'll walk on, I'll walk on. Where you lead me, I'll walk on. And I'll make my escape every step that I take further on. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but he shall have the light of life. How could I go? Where would I hide? Why do I try to live without you? Knowing my heart, knowing my thoughts, knowing my worst, wanted me. And secretly you shade me in this darkness. Joyfully you'll wake me in the light. Fearfully, wonderfully your work goes on. Skillfully you're fitting me for home. Fearfully, wonderfully your work goes on. Skillfully you're fitting me for home. How could I go? Where would I hide? Why do I try to live without you? Knowing my heart, knowing my thoughts, knowing my worst, you wanted me. But secretly you shade me in my darkness. Joyfully you'll wake me in your light. And fearfully, so wonderfully your work goes on. Skillfully you're fitting us for home. Fearfully, so wonderfully your work goes on. Skillfully you're fitting us for home. Fearfully and wonderfully your word goes on. Skillfully you're fitting us for home. Come like a refugee, come like a child. Come because he calls for you. Rest here for a while. Suffer the little children and every suffering soul. Come to Jesus. Jesus knows. Come to Jesus. Jesus knows. Come like a refugee. Come like a child. Come because he calls for you. Rest here for a while. Suffer the little children and every suffering soul. Come to Jesus. Jesus knows. Come to Jesus. Jesus knows. Come to Jesus. Jesus knows. I surrender. Lifting empty hands to you. This is all you've asked for. Of my heart to bring you full surrender into your gentle I fall. Here I hit the bottom. Here I find my hope in you, Jesus. In you, Jesus. Loving you, lifting me. In you, Jesus. I'm in you, Jesus. Loving you. You're lifting me. I surrender. Lifting empty hands to you. 'Cause this is all you've asked for. Help my heart bring you full surrender into your nail-pierced hands I fall. Here I find my meaning. Here I rise again with you, Jesus. I'm with you, Jesus. Loving you, lifting me. I'm with you, Jesus. With you, Jesus. Trusting you, guarding you. With you, Jesus. With you, Jesus. Trusting you, helping me. With you, Jesus. We're with you, Jesus. Trusting you, guarding us. Lord, I surrender. Fearfully, fear not. His word goes on. Skillfully. How could we understand? Fearfully, yet wonderfully, the word goes on. Skillfully, He's fitting us for home. Lord, I love to think these things, to hope this way, to sing such things. And to know that it's not just wishful thinking. How could I outthink what you could make? Lord, help us to hope higher, to love deeper, to expect so much more than we can even imagine. Our God, you are good. You've been good to us. You've taken care of us in ways that we wouldn't have guessed. And Lord, in those ways in which it looks like, feels like, seems like you've somehow left us on our own. Help us know we're not forsaken. We're not forgotten. We're not alone. It just feels that way. But we are blessed to be together with you. Teach us now as we look into the scriptures, Lord. Look into our hearts. Show us what we need to hear. Help us to hear and to learn from you. It's in Jesus' name that we hope. Amen. I see a light. The light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. I see that light. And I call him Jesus. I call him my friend, my brother, my hope, my Savior. I hope that you can see him yourself. Because he's calling us home. He's calling us on. The future. Look forward. Look to him. He's calling us home. He's calling us to the Father, to the future, to the best things that always lie ahead. Jesus says here in the Gospel according to John chapter 8 that this upward call, this outward call, this call of freedom is not just for us, whoever us is. It's for all. He says there in verse 12, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me shall not walk in the darkness, but shall have the light of life. He's calling us to himself, which is always an outward call, out of the cold, out of the isolation, out of the long, dark tunnel. Away from the past, always toward a brighter future. And as we face him, as we turn toward him, as we keep walking that way, as we orient our eyes and our hopes toward heaven and toward the light of life, as we keep listening to love, tuning into, and turning in that direction, then we find, as anyone in the world will find, that he is a great Savior. He says there in the middle of this chapter, verse 26, I have many things to speak and to diagnose concerning you. I'll tell you about yourself. Many more things, he said, but he who sent me is true. And the things which I heard from him, these things I speak to the world. It says the one who sent me, he comes forth from the Father, from the future. Jesus is the true time traveler, the only human I know of who really has gone ahead and come back and who really can say, I've seen the Father. And his face reflects the face of God. And his face radiates the face of God even as he faces us and stands before us. And he's the one who says, look, I know. It's not just something I heard in a distant past, but I know. I've been ahead and I've seen the future and I've seen the Father. And he proceeds from the Father, proceeds from the future. So often our problem is we look to the past, we look to the seed. I'm the seed of Abraham, I'm the seed of someone great. Maybe I'm great because there was great parentage or great things in the past, but it's not your seed, it's your deeds that show who you in fact are. And Jesus' deeds always showed he came from the Father. That was the source, that was the seed, that was the direction that he was coming from. And he stands before these people here in the temple long ago. He stands right in front of each of us. If we want to hear, if we want to listen, if we want to see, he stands here and he calls us. And he speaks to the world. That's his nature. That's his love. There in verse 30, as he spoke these things, many came to believe in him. And Jesus therefore was saying to these Jews who had believed in him, if you stay in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now, he speaks to the world, but at that time he was in the temple, he was speaking to Jews. Some of the Jews believed in him, but they thought that because of their past as Jews, because of their descent from Abraham, they were somehow exceptional. They were somehow a cut above, and so they took offense at the things that Jesus was saying. They retreated back into their own mythology, their own false history of how great we were, into their own delusions of the good old days. And it's the thing that we tend to do. You go back to those good old days, G-O-D, that's their God, the good old days. They weren't all that great, but they go back in a place of defense. When Jesus talks about the future and being free and following me, sadly, and the whole point is not to point at them, it's that they're like us. We all can. This is human nature. This is what we tend to do. You take offense at something, you get defensive, you retreat, you draw back into some comfort zone, you go back into some place of protection, some little cave, some little dark place where you say, wow, aren't I bright? Wasn't it wonderful? The good old days, the good old caves, those things that we retreat into. And here Jesus is calling them forward, like he's calling us forward, out, progressive, move ahead, don't be afraid. He's giving that kind of wonderful call. And it says that they answered him saying, we are Abraham's seed, and we have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How dare you say that you shall become free? And I keep going back to this each week while we're in this section. I keep going back because that's the only way I know how to go forward. I keep coming back to this because what happens in this chapter, again, it's human nature. But it's like a crime scene or an arson investigator going back to a catastrophe and saying, how did this catastrophe start? Because the rest of this chapter is a catastrophe. It's a huge conflagration. It's a disaster. And it culminates, the last verse of this chapter has believers picking up stones to want to kill Jesus. How did that happen? Well, back to this verse. Back to this, how dare you say that about us? How dare you say our delusions about the past somehow are not true? How dare you? And therein lies the spark that begins the fire. That's the trigger. This whole explosion happens, and we all have those things that'll spark us. We all have that nature that can get triggered. And so I keep coming back to this because it's the way that I can learn something for myself to move forward. You see, our tendency, not just them, like we sang in the first song today, nothing in Egypt for me. Okay, I'm basing it on an Old Testament biblical truth that you're familiar with when I wrote those lyrics, but you can say that of whatever your good old days might be. Nothing in that for me. It's not what I think. It's not in the 50s, the nifty 50s, or the wonderful 60s. It's not back in the summer of love, or wherever it was that you feel like that was it. But it's our tendency to always be oriented backward to the good old days of some sort, some mythical, nostalgic fairy tale. And I like fairy tales as long as I just know it's a fairy tale. But these are ones we actually believe in, that somehow that's our identity, that's who we are. And even though it's false, it's a falsehood that feels good. And there aren't many of us who are going to let go of a lie. Let go of a false thing if it's a feel-good lie, if it's a comfortable one, if it's a comforting lie. That's just, again, that is human nature. That's what they are doing. It's not so foreign. It's not so different from any of us. We just have our own areas. And so there in verse 38, Jesus said, I speak the things that I have seen with my Father. Therefore, you do the things that you've heard from your Father. He says, I'm speaking what I have seen with my Father. He says, look, I've been with my Father. I've been in the future. I've been with the timeless one. I understand these things. And I'm facing you now. And I'm telling you to face me. Face the future. Face your Father. God is love. And he says, I'm seeing something. I see the Father. I know what love is. And I'm speaking those words. And I'm standing here calling you forward. Their problem was that, like us, they were oriented toward the past. He was calling them to the future. They were oriented toward the past, a delusional past. Good old Abraham. And Jesus is simply saying, look, you never met Abraham. You never knew Abraham. If Abraham saw the stuff you're doing, he wouldn't like it. And you wouldn't much like him. Later on, Jesus will say, Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he was glad. Jesus is one who's been there and been ahead and been behind, and he knows what he's talking about, and you keep tuning into something that you think is your history. And really what you're tuning into, Jesus was speaking what he saw, what he experienced. They were just doing what they heard, like these little voices, these little inspiring things that move us. And why did I even do that? And what was it I was listening to? And kind of like the radio signal, like we talked about last week, You tune into a signal, and all you're going to hear is the thing you tuned into, because that's the way it works. And you tune into a source and a signal, and sadly for them, at that time, they were tuned into the lying channel. They were tuned into a liar. Any one of us can tune into that station at any given time. Now, the dial's not broken, and it doesn't mean we can't attune ourselves back to love. Like our last message, if I'm listening to love, if I'm looking ahead, if I'm listening to patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness, if I'm listening to love, I can't be listening to the liar at the same time. It's not just about facts left or right, it's about attitude. And if I'm listening to love, if I'm walking in the Beatitudes, if I'm walking in the ways of Christ, then, hey, I'm safe. And I don't have to worry, am I going to regret what I'm saying or doing? But you see, the source of these people's actions, at least at that moment, and sometimes it's the source of our actions and words, they weren't listening to love, they weren't attuned to God, they were listening to the liar. And they were getting all stirred up. And that's really, it's really, again, your deeds that illustrates the source. What are you really tuned into? And the fact that all of this angst and anger and fear and hatred, in the end wanting to throw stones at Jesus, it just shows, hey, you're tuned to the wrong station, folks. You're doing the things that you heard from your father. They answered and said, Abraham is our father. And Jesus said, if you're Abraham's kids, then do the things of Abraham. Really. If he's your root, then where's the fruit? But as it is, you're seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard directly from God. This Abraham never did. You're doing the deeds of your father. And then he goes on to say, verse 45, but because I speak the truth, you don't believe me. Which one of you convicts me of sin? You know, who can say they saw me or they know for a fact I did this or that? Now, the rest of us, man, I wouldn't say who can. Of course, we all sin. All of us. And we're in bondage to that. But the Son came to save us from our sins. But as far as Jesus goes, he says, which one of you could convict me of sin? And if I speak the truth, why don't you believe me? And then he tells why. He says, he who is of God. If you're tuned into God, if you're coming from God, he who is of God hears the words of God. But for this reason you don't hear them, because you are not of God. You know, you're not tuned into the future. You're not tuned into the Father. That's not where you're coming from, so that's not what you're receiving. On the other hand, you're dialed into this other source, this other signal. It's a bunch of lies, but you don't know it, because which of us do know it when we're listening to lies? Again, the need is to tune into God. Listen to Jesus. Listen to love. And walk forward in kindness, in gentleness, in forgiveness. Now, I see the light when I read these things. I see the light, and I believe that the best lies ahead of me. In regard to the past, for all of us, the past is like a dark tunnel. The metaphor is often apt, not just in times of pandemic, but you feel like you're just going through a long, dark tunnel. Even people who've had what they feel to have been a near-death experience. It's the going through this long, dark tunnel, and then there is a light, and there is life. But as far as the past goes, if I'm going to turn around, if I'm going to orient myself to the past, I can believe all kinds of things about it. But you know what? The past is frozen in time. It's shrouded in fog. If I keep turning back that way, because it feels warm and cozy, go back into the good old days, the good old caves when I was there with me and my buds all around the little campfire. Wasn't it great? The future is warm. The future is welcoming. The future is the Father calling to us in the face of Jesus. Come on. Come on. Come on. If you want out, you want to walk. If you want out, there's a way. Turn around. Orientation. Orientation. Now again, just as illustration for us, these Jewish believers were offended. He touched the trigger. He said something about their mythical past, and it offended them. And once we're offended, we're just like them. Once we're offended, we start to get defensive and we start to retreat back into our comfort zone. We go back to our little cave. We go back to our place of protection where me and my clan and my tribe and my group have always found out that we're safe here. The good old days, the good old caves. Don't call me no Neanderthal. It's human nature. They're doing it there. We all tend to do it. Jesus said, look, if you're coming from God, if you're hearing from God, then you'll keep hearing. But if you keep tuned in to the good old lies that you think are true, you're stuck. In bondage, but really only to yourself. Do you really want to move out, walk out, go forward? Of course it's scary. But though I go through the valley of the shadow of death, it's not anything more than a large, dark tunnel, long, dark tunnel. But thou art with me. He's with me. Move forward. Don't be afraid, folks. Don't be afraid of new things. Don't be afraid of walking with Jesus. Don't retreat back into your traditions. Don't retreat back into the things that you think were so great that, no, none of the things of man, none of the things we've ever made, none of it is all that great. It's all got to go. It's all got to fade. We've got to move forward. And Jesus alone can lead us in the future. Now it says, verse 48, the Jews then answered and said to him, don't we say rightly that you're a Samaritan and have a demon? We looked up to verse 47 last week, but I wanted to just give this whole context. I needed to give this context in a different imagery, a different way in terms of orientation, the future versus the past. But I needed to do that because I could never understand what's going on here unless I started there. And the fact is that though Jesus is so lovingly trying to reach out to them and welcome them and call them out of their caves and out of their graves and out of their dark tunnels and out of their traditions and out of their delusions, though he so lovingly and kindly calls them, they are getting increasingly agitated. And at this point, they're clearly tired of talking, tired of thinking. I mean, Jesus never debated with anybody. They kept asking questions and he would answer them, and he'd be brief about his words because he said, you can't hear my words anyway. But for these folks, they're just tired of the debate in their mind, at least in their head. It's do we believe or do we not believe? It's seeing the light and for a few moments getting excited because this guy may be the one. He's the light. And then getting insulted because the light just showed me something that I think is very offensive. And how dare he say that we've ever been in bondage and yada, 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 yada. And for them, just like for you and I, when I'm tired of the whole debate, I'm tired of the whole argument, even if it's mostly me arguing inside my own head, there comes a point, and this is the point here, where you just want to end it. You want to cap it, you want to cork it, you want to close it, you want to you want to slap, that's the word I'm looking for. Not slap the person, but slap a label. You bottle it, you cork it, you slap a label on it, you put it on a shelf, and you say, well, that's what that was all about. Don't need to revisit that. That was the time when I was excited about this guy there in the temple. But you know what? Now I know. Now I know. For a while it seemed like, but now I've put a cork in it, I've slapped a label on it, I've stuck it on a shelf, and I know what to call it. It was just that. It was just that time. They label it in that way, and they say, aren't we right to do so? And now, of course, it's insulting the label they put on, but they're saying, isn't it about time to just end this? To just say to you, even though we believed a while ago, to just say to you, you're a Samaritan and you have a demon? Isn't it right? That's the language they're using. They say, don't we say rightly that this is the label? The judgment is made, the gavel comes down, here's the label, and as for you, Jesus of Nazareth, the label says Samaritan with a demon. The label is pure poison. The label has skull and crossbones on it, and it says to anyone who ever wants to look at you again. And if I revisit who you are and think of you again, that label says to me, don't be fooled by the bottle. Don't be fooled by the outer presentation. Outwardly he looks to be genuine Jewish. He looks to be offspring of Abraham, offspring of David. Seems to be like somebody significant of Jewish heritage, like we are. But now we know the label says, no, in fact, this guy is human trash. Now the way they said human trash, we have ways of saying it today too. Won't go there. But we have ways of dismissing and dehumanizing and just calling somebody something less than human. And for them, the word was simple. You're a Samaritan. As far as your DNA, you're just junk DNA. You're a Samaritan. That's the way they looked at it. You're just human trash in a Jewish body. You're a Samaritan, and you're not even a pure Samaritan, pure trash. You're not even pure trash. You're actually inspired and somehow infected by a demon. There's an effervescence, there's a carbonation, there's a spirit inside that human trash called Samaritan. You also have a demon as well. Carbonated human junk. That's the label you put on the bottle, put them on the shelf, and they said to Jesus, aren't we right in doing so? Having heard you this long, isn't that the right kind of label? Crazy. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And Jesus answered and said, I don't have a demon. I don't have an evil spirit. But I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Now, he says nothing about the Samaritan part. I don't know which part they would have thought was the worst insult. You're a Samaritan and you have a demon. Jesus doesn't say, wait a minute, who are you calling a Samaritan? Of course, Jesus wouldn't do that. Why? He loved Samaritans. Some insults, it's an insult to even address some insults. He's not even going to go there. Jesus is proud of his humanity. Not just descended from Abraham or David. He's the Son of Man. He's proud of his humanity. He loves his family, including the Samaritans. When Jesus wants to paint a picture of the ideal neighbor, a picture of himself, it's the Good Samaritan. So he doesn't even address that part. But as far as the demon, the evil spirit, he said, I don't have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Say, I don't have an evil spirit, but you are spewing an evil spirit. The effervescence, what you're full of in spirit is spewing out of your mouths. As you dishonor me, the very one who honors the Father, the very one who reflects and displays love and kindness and gentleness and mercy and forgiveness. I value, I cherish, and I represent that. And then you devalue, degrade, dehumanize me. What does that say about you? Where's the evil spirit? Who's spitting out the spirit from the mouth? The mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. And in love, Jesus is trying to help them. God, help us see. Who's got the problem here? He says, I don't have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Now, if I said, you said, I honor myself, and you dishonor me, now we're talking about something that's really dealing with earthly things. My honor, my reputation, I'm defending my honor. I honor myself, you dishonor me. Now we're maybe getting down in the mud, but we're battling on a personal level. Wait a second, I respect myself, you disrespect me. Let's fight about it. And we do, all the time. But Jesus wasn't doing that. And if anyone had an honor worth defending. It was Jesus. Jesus didn't live that way. So he can show us that we can't live that way. It's not what it's about. It's not about defending my honor. It's not about defending his honor. He said, I honor love. I honor the Father. I honor something so much higher. I honor the things that matter most. I honor the things of heaven. And then you dishonor me. What does that say about you? And if I see things that way, how does that keep me from getting down in the mud and fighting insult for insult? I honor myself, you just dishonored me. I'm now fighting for my honor. Now, defending my honor isn't the hill to die on. It's really, that's not the issue. People can be wrong all the time, and they often are. Both directions. Sometimes they think more highly of me than they ought, but that's not the issue. If, on the other hand, I set my life to be somewhat like Jesus, if I set my life to honor the Father, I just want to honor love. I want to value love. I want to cherish love. I want to listen to love. I want to treasure and display and walk in love. If I decide to do that, if you decide to do that, and then as I'm doing that with my life, if you then dishonor me, or devalue me, or dehumanize me in some way, the sad thing is my job is not to defend my honor. My job here in this world is to develop my honor by honoring the Father, by honoring love, by honoring the higher one. And so if I'm living to do that, and then you come against me, that's not a challenge to me. It's not something that I need to take offense and, oh, how dare you say that? You're another one. It's not about taking offense or getting defensive. If I'm honoring the Father, if I'm valuing and cherishing and listening to and walking in love, and then you dishonor me, I don't need to get defensive. I don't even feel like getting defensive. Instead, I pity you. Really, not, and you don't say, oh, I pity you, because that's just another petty game. No, and truly, as Jesus did with these people, I feel sad for you. Because I know what my life is about. I know my future. I know where I'm coming from. I know where I'm going. But then you have to come along and slap labels on me. You have to come along and try to dishonor and dehumanize me in some way. No, I pity for you. I have pity for you, clearly. And I prayed for you. I should pray for you, sincerely. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And then I can let that go. Oh, it feels good to let things go, doesn't it? And I don't feel any need, because I'm not offended and I'm not getting defensive, I don't feel any need to slap a label on you. Well, you're another one. I don't have to slap a label on you. You said something dishonoring to me. Okay. I'm honoring the Father. That's wonderful. But if you come against me in a personal sense, I don't have to take it personally. Pray that you do well. Pray that you have some peace. But why do I have to stick a label on somebody else? Why should I stick a label and say, well, you're the demon-possessed one. You're the one that is going to, you're one of those. Why stick a label on when somebody's not stuck? Why should I stick a label on? They're not stuck in that place. These people are not stuck with listening to the liar, listening to the devil. Some of them will come to believe even more fully later. Of course they will. Why label them when people can change? Why think that you can judge the whole when there's a dynamic and people are in flux and people are in movement and people are in change, and if they're wrong right now, they might be right later. But if they're wrong, if they're labeling and judging and devaluing others, they're doing the harm to themselves. I don't have to take that harm to myself. And knowing that, labeling them, calling them this or that, doesn't help them, and it's not even fair. But if I see, as Jesus did, these people are listening to the liar. If I see that they're in a bad place and if I pray for them, the knowledge of what they're doing, it may not help them because they can't hear it, not at this point anyway. So I'm not trying to tell them anything. But in my heart, it really, really helps me to know that don't take it personally. They're obviously having a bad day. They're listening to a lie somewhere. They've got some problems, but you know what? Father, forgive us. Deliver us from evil. And that knowledge helps save me from getting stained by all the stuff they're spewing. It helps me from taking in that evil spirit. And I don't mean like, ooh, I'm talking about evil spirit. I'm talking about unseen things. I'm talking about ugly things in the air. They're everywhere. Ugly things in the air. I don't have to take them in. I don't have to start building up a reservoir of ugly things to throw back. I can just, it feels good. I don't have to defend my honor. God help me to develop my honor, to live in a way that's honorable. God knows. That's all that matters. And I know if I'm at peace. I know if I'm listening to love. I know if I'm doing well. I know if I'm free. It feels good to be free. There's no protection to be found in the past. The good old days aren't what you think they were. I don't find my protection in going back and defending something that was never perfect. Everything's got problems. I don't have to protect myself in the past. I can project myself into the future because that's where my Father is. That's where my Savior is. And so I just want to do better right now and tomorrow. And however much I've messed up things in the past, Father, forgive me. And if I've offended you, don't take it personally. It was my problem. But I want to keep learning, and I want to keep not defending something from the past, but projecting my life into the future. I don't want to go back into the long, dark tunnel. I want to follow the light and get out of this cave, get out of this grave, get out of this. Yeah. And that's what Jesus came to help us do. Reminder to the mirror, the camera, the folks that are there. It's a mirror. In so many ways, I think we're alike, good and bad. But just to remind myself, the danger, the big danger, is never from the outside. The danger is not that someone would dishonor me or someone would disrespect me, that somebody would label me or libel me or defame me in some way. That is never the danger. The greatest danger always lies within. It's the lies that lie within, especially the comfortable lies that lie within. The ones we don't want to let go of, because that's something that protects me. That's my identity. That's how I orient myself. That's how I know that I must be okay, because I go back into this cave. I go back into this place of protection. That's the danger. The danger is the lies that lies within us, because it'll come out. Even if you won't come out, the poison will come out. It'll spew out. You can't keep that genie in the bottle. It'll spew out once in a while. Something will trigger you. The anger, the angst, the fear, the anxiety, the reaction, I'm done with you. And I mean it. Can't kill you because I don't want to go to jail. But I can cut you off. And be glad I did. All of that is the poison within us. But if the person on the outside of us doesn't take it personally, if they want to take that high road of following Jesus, then they don't have to be stained by it. It's the damage that we do to ourselves. The great danger isn't in being labeled or libeled. The big danger is in labeling, in passing judgment, and then labeling someone as something. We'll talk more about this. I want to think more about this in the week ahead. But think about this. You cannot possibly honor. Honor means to value. You cannot possibly truly honor and value somebody. And we're told, of course, honor all men. Honor all men. You can't possibly honor or value someone and label them at the same time. Because the label always says, that's what you are. It's like the gavel of the judge. It's the verdict. It's boom, there. That's what you are. And if you think that's all somebody is, you're wrong. There's so much inside of each of us. And so much possibility for change. And who are you to set the label and say, you're one of those? The danger isn't being labeled, it's in labeling. In the next week we'll look at that more, but think of it. Think about it in the week ahead. They say, do we not say rightly that you're a Samaritan and have a demon? That phrase, to say rightly. They ask you, don't we say rightly? It's a Greek word, it's Lego. Just like the little ones you put together, Lego. Say rightly. It's a word that at first meant to lay down to sleep. But it came to mean to put an argument to rest. Let's just put this to bed. Let's just put it to rest. Let's just get closure. Let's just lay it down and let's just end it right here. Let's just cap it. Let's just cork it. Let's label it. Let's shelve it. Let's say that's what it is. And they said, did we get the right label, Jesus? And again, they were trying to insult him when they said it, but they said, we're done with this. Why don't we just cork it right now, label it for what it is, put it on the shelf, and say Samaritan with an effervescence of evil spirit. Isn't that right? And of course, what Jesus will teach us, if we want to learn, is that it's never about finding the right label. It's about finding that it's never right to label. There's where the danger is. Finding that it's not right to label because you have no right to label. You have no right to label. Who do you think you are? And again, it's not that we necessarily throw the labels around, although we do. It's the way we think and feel about people. As we have them pigeonholed into their little categories, who do you think you are to think that you can pass judgment on someone else's life? Do you have any idea what you're doing to yourself when you do that? It's not about what you do to them. If they take the high road, again, if they follow Jesus, okay, so what? You libel me, you defame me, you think that's all I am, okay. Truly, it's your problem. Do you have any idea what you're doing to yourself? Jesus says, I don't seek my glory. I'm not looking to be honored. I don't seek my glory, but there is one who seeks. He seeks, he develops, he grows. There's one. You're not him. There's one. There's one who seeks to save the lost. There is one who seeks to honor and to glorify and to grow and to build. There is one who seeks and one who judges, and you're not him. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. You don't have to wait till you die to see if you're not going to see death. You can stop looking at death right now. Judging and labeling is a pretty deadly thing to do. It's as close to hell as I want to get. I want to quit with that stuff. I want to quit listening to the liar. Convinced that I'm on the right side of the lie. Listen to love. Follow him. And the promise is you won't even see death. You'll just like death. You just keep. Why? Because your orientation is always to the light and always to the future. And it's almost like, what even happened? When did I step out of earth and into heaven? I don't know. I'm already walking that way. I'm stepping out right now. Orientation is so important. Not your political orientation or your sexual orientation or your religious orientation. We make so much identity about our orientation in that regard. No, it's your orientation in terms of the path that you're on. Is your orientation toward the future, toward the Father, toward love, toward light? You won't be here that much longer anyway. Or is your orientation toward the past? You may call it the comforting past, the good old days, the get back to whatever you think you should get back to, but the fact is it's not what you think. And all the things of the past have to pass. Of course. Orientation toward the future. Be hopeful. You got every good reason to be hopeful. The light is here, whatever tunnel you happen to be in, just step out. Quit being afraid. Quit being defensive. Quit feeling so offended. Come out. Jesus is calling. Can you hear it? Come out of your defenses. Come out of your well-formulated arguments. Come out of your apologetics. Just follow Jesus. Just realize that any of us could be wrong at any given moment, but you know what? We got someone who loves us and who will forgive us and who will help us. Let's be loving and forgiving and helpful toward others, because Jesus is saying, come out of your caves, come out of your sheepfolds, come out of your institutions, come out of your caves, come out of your graves, come out of your long dark tunnels, come out of your, just come out of it, come off of it, come forward. Isn't that it? Isn't that? Not come forward to this altar call. I couldn't even have an altar call. Come to this. Come on. Come to Jesus. He's calling you right here in your heart. He loves you. Learn to love. Find your freedom. Don't worry about death. You won't even see it happen. If you just keep your eyes forward. Bright future. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for hope. A light at the end of the tunnel that's not just, oh, here's this vaccine, or oh, here's this new political answer, or here's this wonderful religious revival. No. The light at the end of the tunnel, for us, it goes on forever. It's the tunnel. It's the grave that goes away. And I thank you, Lord, we don't have to wait for death to really see life and enjoy life and share life. Help us to do so today. Jesus, you've given so much good reason for hope. For whoever wants to hear you. You speak to the world. May we learn as you have done to love. To freely love. Thanks for this time together. In Jesus' name.